Well, happy Mother's Day. And if this is your first time here, we do not do this every day. But we do it for mothers, because one of the things we talk about a lot at Church 180 is we want to be a church where men want to come. We want to be a church that if the mom was sick, if the wife was sick, the guy would still say, well, I'm going to go to church. Are you okay? Well, first of all, the guy would say, are you sure you're going to be okay? Right? You want to make sure you say that. Are you going to be okay? Yeah? Good, I'm going to go to church. We want to be that kind of church where man would come even if his wife didn't come, because we think the best gift that we can give to a lady is a man who knows God and knows how to treat a lady. Isn't that right, fellas? Right. Ladies? Yeah, go 50-50 there, right? Ladies, isn't that right? So, you know, as a church, hopefully one of the things we can do within men is give you opportunities to honor the lady in your life, to honor the mother of your children. And so this is our gift to you, moms. Thank you so much for the role that you play in our homes and our lives. We know this. Without you, gosh, the hair that would show up at school, the outfits that would show up at school, there'd be rotten teeth because we, you know, every other day brushing would be sufficient, and it would just be chaos without you, Mom. So we deeply, deeply appreciate you and want to say a big happy Mother's Day. Now let me just right up front define what I mean by mother, all right? First of all, if you've ever given birth to a child, you are a mom. If you have ever carried a child in your womb, you are a mom. That's a word to every mom who's ever experienced a miscarriage. If you've ever had a life inside of you, you are a mother. And we say Happy Mother's Day to you. And thirdly, I would say that if you've ever served as a mother figure to a child of another lady, you are a mom. And we say Happy Mother's Day to you as well. So Happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. Now, every parent in this room, and mom in particular, know this, that there are moments in the parenting process where there are things you just really would like to say, but it would be unwise to say them to your children, so you don't. Instead, what you do is you take to a forum that's set apart for parents who need to vent. We call it Twitter. Can I get a witness? And fortunately, technology has given us such a forum. And the cool thing about Twitter is that your kids can't see it until they're old enough to do research on their family history, and then they'll be scarred by all the things you've tweeted right then. And another thing I find about Twitter is that it's a place where we can say unfiltered things that we wish later we could take back. Nevertheless, Huffington Post does something really neat. Every week, they collect a series of funny tweets that parents have posted throughout the week. And I went through and checked out the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I found some of the funniest tweets that moms had posted, and I wanted to share a few of them with you this morning. So let's just look. Here we go. Funny tweets by moms. Stephanie McMaster says, in honor of Earth Day, I'm throwing away all my kids' drawings straight to the recycling bin. Right? I mean, teachers, we love you. God bless you. But good gosh, you sent us home a lot of papers. So in honor of Earth Day, this is what we're going to do. How about this? A picture is worth 10,000 words when a 3-year-old's telling you about it. Is that right? All right, how about this one? Hey kids, remember when you popped out of bed at the crack of dawn yesterday? How about we do that again today for school? Now hold on just a second. How is it that like on Monday, you can't drag your little butts out of bed at 7 a.m. But on Saturday at 6 a.m. they're standing by your bed. What are we going to do? Let's go. Can we go? Can we go to the park? Can we go to the park? Can we play? What are you guys in bed for, right? Good gosh, I love that tweet. All right, here we go. How about this? I'm listening. Hashtag lies parents tell. I mean, I'm sure God gets that, right? And he's like, all right, we're good with that one, all right? How about this one? Once you get past the whining, complaining, screaming, crying, fighting, and general hell raising, children aren't so bad. All right? How about this one? Marathons are proof that parents are willing to do just about anything to get a few hours of peace and quiet. Just saying, like, all right. My kids just introduced themselves as let's go and we're late. That's good. Alright, this is my favorite. I'm doing some reflection today. At what point in my life did showering become optional? If you don't have kids, you don't get that one, right? Okay, and this is the last one. And Dad put this out because I felt like dads, we should be a part of this as well. But every mom in the room will understand this. Insanity isn't doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's negotiating with a toddler. Spot on with that one. All right, good. So it's just kind of good to know that we're not the only ones that experience a little bit of in the parenting process. So let me just give you something to think about quick. Here we go. You are here because, all right, here we go. It's on the slide. You are here because of your mom. So you are physically here because of your mom. In fact, we know this. Whenever we see someone, we know there was first a mom, right? Like you can't ever, there's no one in this room that didn't first have a mom. In fact, mom literally pushed you into the world. That's, as a result of your mom, you are here physically. But then there's this. You are here because of your mom. And what I mean by you is you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. So much of you, so much of me is made up as a result of the influence of our mothers. I mean, you think about this. You, who you are, you have either built on or you've had to overcome the influence of your mom to become what you are today. One of my favorite people in the world, 82 years old, Franny Sullivan. She was 82 several years ago, actually. I was her pastor in Pennsylvania. And Franny could make the best pumpkin pie in the world. No one has ever beat it. I do encourage you to try. Some of you will think about that later and be like, yeah, I need to make him a pumpkin pie. It's welcome. Very, very nice. But I remember one time Franny was talking with me and she told me, and she was telling me about her childhood and growing up. At 82 years old, don't miss that, 82 years old, she actually began to get tears in her eyes. And she told me this. She said, when I was a little girl, my mother told me, you were a mistake. 82 years old, and it still rocked her world at 82 years old. And somehow Franny had managed to overcome that impact, the impact of those words that her mother had had on her. But what I'm saying is that you, who you are, is a result largely due to the influence of your mother. You've either built on the foundation that she laid, or you've had to overcome. Now in this room, there are some amazing mothers who've laid some incredible foundations for their children to raise up and build up on. And I can't acknowledge every one of you, but I'd like to acknowledge a couple. I think Miss Pat Call, I think she's a phenomenal mother, and I think she's laid an incredible foundation for her children to build up on. I'm so proud that she's in our church. Miss Barb Hagenbotham in the very back, she's laid a phenomenal foundation for her children to raise up on and be built up on. Miss Crystal Clements is another. And we could just go on and on and on. There are some phenomenal mothers right here in this room that have actually laid a foundation for their kids to be able to build on and grow on. And there's lots of kids in this room that haven't had to overcome the negatives that mom has put in, but there are some. And so as we think about moms, we just want you to know, first of all, you are here because of your mom, and you are here because of your mom. All right? Now, I've been reading this book by John Maxwell, and it's The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Great, great book. I'd actually encourage you to read it if you get the opportunity. And in this book, he tells the story of a guy named Eric Weinheimer, who is a blind man who climbed Mount Everest, which in my opinion is absolutely phenomenal. Like, some of us have a hard time getting up the stairs without tripping. This guy can't see, and he actually climbs to the top of Mount Everest. And so I was intrigued by this. Now, I have a practice of going to Goodwill. I go regularly, and I look at their books. And sometimes I'll hit a gold mine. Like, sometimes people will empty their libraries and they'll take them to Goodwill, and I get them and put them in mine. And amazing the stuff you can find there in their book department. So a few weeks ago I was there, and I actually saw a book about a blind man who climbed Mount Everest. And so I'm reading John Maxwell's book, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm reading the story about a blind man who climbed Mount Everest. I just saw a book about a blind man who climbed Mount Everest. I'm going to go back to Goodwill and see if I can find it. And I went back to Goodwill, and I found it. I found the book about the blind man who climbed Mount Everest. So I picked it up, I started reading it, and when I opened up this book to see, to begin reading, look what I saw. This is an autographed copy of Eric Weinheimer's book. I'm like, this is gold, man. I go to Goodwill, I get an autographed copy of this dude's book. This is phenomenal. That was my first thought. My second thought was this: how is it that a blind man has nicer handwriting than I do? I don't know how that works. So, but this is a picture of Eric. He's actually at this picture right here. He's crossing a crevice. This guy's completely blind. He's crossing a crevice in the Khumbu Icefall, which is a trek that you have to make to actually get to the top of Mount Everest. That's insane. I look at that and my knees get weak. You know, look at that. That's insane. And the dude's blind. So, I start this story, and it turns out that Eric wasn't born blind. But early on in his childhood, like early on, 2, 3, 4, they began to realize that something was wrong, and the doctors actually ended up breaking news to his parents that by the time he was in his early teens, he would be completely blind. So when their parents began the process of getting Eric into the educational system, the school, where to put him became an issue. Because as they talked to the public schools said, we just don't have the accommodations to serve Eric's needs. So we really can't, as much as we'd like to, we can't help your son. So they went to a local private school, and again, the conversation was, we would love to help you, but we don't have the resources that Eric will need. And so Eric says, he said they agreed. The administrators concluded that it would be best for me to attend a school for the blind, and they offered to help my mother make arrangements. But his mother came unglued. She said, this is not what I want for my son. I'm not okay with this, because learning in those environments is not what my son needs. And after making a strong case and arguing passionately with the administrators of the school, she said this: he's going to a normal school with normal children. And even if I have to go to school with him, he's going to learn. And then Eric writes in this book, he says, I don't know how my mother found the strength to oppose the world. Maybe it's simply a mother's primal instinct to nurture and defend her child. She was as unprepared as the administrators sitting across from us, and somehow she believed in me. I was just a little boy with my ink-smudged nose pressed against the page. I had done nothing yet to prove myself. So how she saw strength, opportunity, and promise, while other people saw problems, obstacles, and limits, I'll never know for sure. Favorite line of that whole story is that last line. Look at this. I've done nothing to prove myself. So how she saw strength, opportunity, and promise, while other people saw problems, obstacles, and limits, I'll never know for sure. But I would bet you $1 that every mom in this room has a little bit of something inside of you that identifies with Eric's mom. My kid can do it. See, everyone else was saying no, but mom said yes. The system was pushing against Eric, but mom pushed harder. And the man who was initially written off because of a disability ended up becoming quite a successful man. In fact, look at some of these pictures while I read to you what he has done in his lifetime. In 2005, he co-founded No Barriers USA, which helps children with special challenges overcome and live active, purpose-filled lives. And currently, they're actually working quite frequently with injured soldiers. NoBarriers.USA. In 2011, Eric was part of a 3-member team which competed on ABC's Expedition Impossible, which is a race across the deserts and mountains of Morocco. They finished second. He also completed the Leadville 100 mountain bike race at elevations above 10,000 feet. And because that wasn't enough in 2011, he also competed in Primal Quest, which is an adventure race over 460 miles with 60,000 feet of elevation gains, blind. In September of 2014, he kayaked the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, 227 miles. Today, while still doing adventures and participating in adventures, he is a prominent worldwide speaker. This is a little boy who the school looked at and said, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, we can't help. There's not much of a future for this young man. But his mom said, but there is. None of this would have happened. When people looked at Eric, they said, this can't happen, but here's an important phrase, but mom. When others walked away, mom believed and expected, and she worked. When others pushed, mom pushed back, but harder. When others labeled, mom redefined the labels. When the world said you can't, mom said you can and you will. Now some of you in the rooms, this room today have had moms just like that. And some of you are moms who are doing that for your children. And I applaud you. God bless you. If you've had a mom like that, I just say to you today, my gosh, when you go home, pick up the phone, give her a call, write her a note, connect with her some way, give her some chocolate. Amen? So I look at this and I'm like, this was an exceptional mom. But what I realize is that this is what moms do. This whole idea of but mom. When everybody's looking on and says, I don't know, or they just want to slap a label on a child, or when they doubt a child, all of that may be happening, but mom. When mom steps in, things begin to happen. So what I wanted to do is I want to tell you 3 stories today. That was number 1. Number 2, I want to tell you about another mom who stepped in. And I want to give you a couple of ideas about how she did that, and how we, or you as moms, and we as parents, quite frankly, fathers, and even, quite frankly, as mentors. If you're here today and you're not a mom and you're not a dad, you still have the capacity to be a mentor in the life of a child. I think that's an important thing. So let me tell you about a lady named Mary. She was the mother of the leader of our faith. The leader of our faith is Jesus, and she was his mom. And Luke was one of Jesus' biographers who also happened to know him quite well. He did a tremendous amount of historical research. And he tells about the time when Jesus was born. Now, there are a lot of people who will say this was a pretty subtle event. Like Jesus' birth was a fairly subtle event. Sure, it happened in a little barn, but I would actually contest that it wasn't all that subtle. I mean, if you read through Luke's account of Jesus' birth, there was a choir of angels, there was a celestial anomaly, this huge star in the air, there was hundreds of years of prophecies pointing toward this moment. And if you remember the Christmas story, right, you've probably seen major scenes and you may have heard songs about it, but if you remember the story, there was a choir of angels that showed up and said, something big is happening today. All these years of prophecy are coming true. God is going to come into this world in the human form. And Luke writes that when these shepherds who were sitting on a hill, they saw this, they heard this, they were like, oh gosh, this is what they did. They ran to the village and they found Mary and Joseph. And there was the baby, lying in a manger where the cows and the horses would eat from. And then the shepherds told everyone what had happened, what the angel had said to them about this child, and all who heard the shepherd's story were astonished, just like you or I would be, right? I mean, if we're hearing about these shepherds, these farmers, and they're like, man, we're sitting there in the field with our cows and our sheep, and all these angels are in the sky, we'd be like, oh, really? That's how people work, all right? All this is going on, and Mary's sitting off in the corner, and this is what Luke said Mary was doing. Mary quietly treasured these things in her heart and thought often about them. Something unique, something special, something extraordinary about my child. Put it in her heart, tucked it away, thought about it. A few years passed. Now Jesus is a tweener. If you don't know what a tweener is, aren't you glad you came to church? Tweeners are 10 to 12 years old. Jesus was a tweener, all right? And his parents had gone to, some of you guys are like, oh, that's what they call them, because I have one of those, right? His parents had gone to the big city of Jerusalem for a big religious festival. And when they were leaving the city, there were thousands of people leaving. I mean, it's almost like if you're leaving a Clemson game or a USC game, right? There's less chaos, it's madness. And so his parents assumed as they were leaving the city to go back to their home, they assumed that Jesus was with some family members. And so they didn't worry too much that either one of them saw him. Until after 3 days, no one had seen Jesus. Remember, he's 12. Where's this kid? So he started to freak out a bit. No one could find him. No one's seen him. So they head back into Jerusalem to find their 12-year-old son. And when they found him, you know what he was doing? He was hanging out with a bunch of pastors and religious scholars having a conversation. And so you know what they did? They did exactly what you would do. In fact, if you read Luke chapter 2, they chewed him out. They're like, what are you doing? Like, you have to stay with me. You can't just walk away from us. And they chewed him out just like you chew out your 10-year-old, your 12-year-old who runs away from you. Can I get a witness? You need to do that, right? Okay, so that's what his parents did to them. They're pretty heated, but they got onto him just like you and I did, and they headed back home. And this is what Luke, again, Jesus' biographer, says happened. He returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them, and his mother stored all these things in her heart. See, what was happening is over the course of Jesus' young life, from his birth to some activity that happened when he was a tweener, his mother she would make observations, she would watch, and she would see things, and she would grab a hold of these things, these things that he did, and these things that he said, and she would kind of store them away in her heart and ponder them and think about them. Skip ahead a few years, and now Jesus is a young man, and he's becoming a spiritual leader in the community. And at this point, he hasn't done much to garner attention, but so one day he's invited to be at a wedding, and John, who happened to be one of Jesus' best friends and also his biographer, wrote about it like this. This is what he said. Jesus' mother was at it. This is in John chapter 2. He said, Jesus' mother was a guest at a wedding in the village of Cana in Galilee, and Jesus and his disciples, who were his friends, were also with him at the celebration. And the wine supply ran out during the festivities. We cannot have this, right? So Jesus' mother spoke to him about the problem. Like, they have no more wine. What are we going to do? And Jesus, which raises the eyebrows of every Baptist I know, said, here's what we're going to do, right? No, this is what he said. He said, how does that concern you and me? If they have no wine, how's that my problem? And then he said, look, it's not my time to go public. So just let it go. Well, look what John said happened. But his mother told the servants to do whatever he tells you. And then Jesus did that thing that raises the eyebrows of every Baptist I know, right? He made wine. He made wine. And in fact, John later on said this in John chapter 2, verse 11. He said, this miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was Jesus' first display of his glory, and his disciples, look at this, believed in him. Mary was insistent, like, Jesus, we've got a problem, you got to fix it. Jesus said, it's not my time to go publish. But his mother stepped up and said, we're going to do this. She was insistent. Jesus did what his mom told him, right? His followers believed in him because he did something extraordinary. They said, whoa, maybe this guy's legit. And the revolution began. Now, it's interesting to me as I process all this stuff, this story about Jesus, that something started early in Jesus' story. His mom kept seeing things. She kept noticing things. She'd see things that were a little unique, a little different. She'd take them away, she'd ponder them, she'd think about them, she'd watch them. And undoubtedly there are lots of moments of frustration, just like you get frustrated with your kids, and sometimes I'm sure there were points of confusion, like, why this? Like, what is he saying? What is he doing? And there was frustration, there was confusion. I'm sure as a mom she was weary at points, but she didn't lose sight of the fact that there was something special about this kid. So she watched, she pondered, she believed, and she pushed. And I think this is what great moms do. I think great moms do what Mary did. It's this, that they watch, they observe their children, and they ponder. They believe in their children, and they push their children. Eric's mom did that. Little blind boy who became one of the most incredible adventurers of our modern era. Jesus' mom did that. She watched, pondered, believed, and pushed, and as a result, he performed his first miracle when the revolution began. Maybe your mom did that too. Watch, wonder, believe, push. So I would just say to every mom in this room, mom, that little person that calls you mom, or maybe in some cases that bigger person that calls you mom, has something unique and special inside of him or her. And here's the thing, few people might see it. A few people might see it. Some people will look at that unique, that special thing, and they'll want to label it or medicate it. And most people will miss it. Most people will miss the unique, the special, the extraordinary that lies in the heart of your child. But mom. What mom sees is different. See, I think God has gifted mom with a set of eyes that sees things that other people don't see. You know what's interesting? I was reading a couple studies about what moms want most for Mother's Day. And the thing that mom wants most for Mother's Day, according to this research, was dinner and time with the kids, time with the family. The thing they wanted least was technology. Dads, on the other hand, the number one thing that dads wanted, you know what it was? Technology. I want a phone. I want something like a computer. Like, it's just great. Moms and dads are wired differently. God did a really cool thing when he wired us like that, didn't he? Come on, let's get an amen. What mom sees is different. I've watched my bride, the mother of my children. Some of you know her as the lovely and talented Mrs. Peterson. I watch her as she ponders and watches and believes and pushes. And one of our daughters has a harder time learning than the other 5. And last year her teachers wanted to give her an iPad and just let her doodle on that and call that her education. And I remember sitting in an IEP meeting with Sherry when she insisted, with an almost that kind of an insistence, that our daughter be taught to write, that she learn how to hold a pencil, that she learn how to form letters. And this year, after the adamant insistence of Sherry, the teachers are giving feedback like, we can't believe the progress she's making. It's unbelievable how well she's doing. Look, she's even writing letters. It really comes down to that whole phrase, but mom. Family may see a different set of stuff. Friends may see a different set of stuff. The school may see a different set of stuff. But mom, the thing that mom sees The thing that mom ponders, the thing that mom watches, the thing that mom believes, the thing that mom pushes for. It's amazing, mom, the influence you have in the life of your kids. And you could be the linchpin that changes them from what everybody else expects them to be, to creating this extraordinary man or this extraordinary woman that you believe God has created and given to you as a gift. See, I think there's a lot of men, there's a lot of women whose lives would be different if they had believed what their teachers said. If they had believed what their families said. If they had believed what coaches said. If they believed what friends had said about them. But mom said something different. And consequently, life is a lot different than what everybody expected it would be. Let me tell you one more story. This is Pablo Picasso. You've heard of him? Yes. Right? Quite possibly the greatest and most influential artist of the 20th century. He introduced a whole new paradigm of art. Not everyone, however, appreciated his talent early on. He was a relatively poor student. In fact, he probably would have been labeled and medicated. When he was 13 years old, he was all about drawing and writing, and he lost all desire to do schoolwork. He chose to spend the day doodling in his notebook instead. In fact, he records this: "For being a bad student, I was banished to the calaboose, which is a bare cell with whitewashed walls and a bench to sit on." Right? In 1895, when he was 14 years old, he moved with his family to Barcelona, Spain, where he applied to the city's prestigious School of Fine Arts. Again, he chafed at all the rules and all the regulations, and he began skipping class so that he could roam the streets of Barcelona sketching the city scenes he observed. Oh my God, this kid, there's got to be a label for him, right? When he was 16 years old, he again moved to another city, Madrid, to attend the Royal Academy of San Fernando. He became frustrated with the school's singular focus. He got bored. He wrote to a friend, "They just go on and on about the same old stuff. Velázquez for painting, Michelangelo for sculpture." And once again, he started skipping classes to wander the city and paint whatever he observed. Gypsies, beggars, prostitutes, among other things. Can you imagine being the dad to this kid? "I'm paying good money for that school, and you're drawing those paintings? Are you kidding me?" Yeah. He went on to become one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. Again, created a whole new paradigm of art. And after having made his mark, he reflected back on what made the difference for him. Look what he said. "My mother said to me, if you're a soldier, you will become a general. If you're a monk, you become the Pope. Instead, I was a painter, and I became Picasso." When others saw a troubled kid who couldn't get his head in his school books, his mother saw something great, and she let him know that. When others saw a kid who couldn't stay focused long enough to stay in the classroom and add 2+, his mother saw something. When others were saying, "This kid is a problem, he's got trouble, he can't be disciplined," mom saw something different. Donna Maria Picasso saw something else. Now I would just say to you, as I get ready to wrap this up, these might be the words that you might say about your mom. Like, people saw me and they saw trouble, they saw discontent, they saw a problem kid, they saw all this, but mom saw something else. And they might be the words that your child speaks about you today or someday. So mom, I just want to encourage you to follow the counsel of Mary, right? The mother of Jesus. To watch, to ponder, to believe, to push. To watch, to ponder, to believe, to push. And I promise you, as your child grows, you're going to hear people say things about your child that completely miss the things that you see and the things that you believe about your child. Don't allow what you see in your child to be conformed by what people who don't know your child like you do believe about your child. Does that make sense? You are God's gift to your child, and your words and your influence will be the foundation upon which they build their lives. My prayer for you today is that regardless of what others are saying about your child, what others might see in your child, the things that you will watch and ponder and believe and push for will become a reality. And that as a result, the men and women in this room who are parents of the kids over there and the kids back here will raise up men and women who are significant and filled with love and grace and passion, who do great things in this world for our community, for the world, for God. This is my prayer. And Mom, you are a critical player. But Mom. So what I want to do today is I just want to wrap up with a word of prayer for you, and then we're going to have seconds. And just love on our moms. What do you say, guys? Good? Father, thank you so much for moms. Moms who see things that other people may not see. When people say he's a little blind boy and his future doesn't look bright at all, I don't know what he's going to do. That's what they said, but Mom saw something different. Even Jesus' mother, who at points undoubtedly was frustrated and weary and maybe even confused at points, watched and pondered and believed and pushed for her son to become the man that God had created him to be. And Pablo Picasso's mother, Donna Marie Picasso, saw something in her young man that was great, even when the educators and the system as a whole saw something that was lacking. She saw something different, but Mom saw something different. God, I pray that for all of our mothers today, there'd be a fresh dose of peace, a fresh dose of patience, a fresh dose of grace. Give them new vision, God. Sometimes when we walk in the house, all we see are the socks on the floor and the toothpaste in the sink and the toilet lid that's peed on. I mean, that's the stuff we see. Help us to see beyond that. Help us to see little pieces of art. Little men, little women that are growing and being shaped by the things that we see in them. Give us big vision for our kids, God. And we give you praise for our moms. Without our moms, God, gosh, you blessed us richly with our moms, and we give you praise for that. In Jesus' name. Happy Mother's Day, guys. God bless.